She slapped my autistic nephew and called him a freak. So I walked up and shattered her face against the HOA sign she worshipped. She thought her title made her powerful. But that day, the only thing she ruled was the blood on the pavement and the silence of a neighborhood that finally stopped obeying. But before her crown cracked and her nose bled on the concrete, let me show you how it all began. It was supposed to be a quiet afternoon. After 12 years serving in the military, I didn't expect peace to feel this strange. I'd come to stay with my sister and her son for a few months, hoping to reset, breathe again, maybe even learn what still made this world worth fighting for. Ben, my 9-year-old nephew, was one of the few reasons I still believed in anything. Smart, gentle, autistic. He never spoke much, but his eyes said plenty. He loved drawing trees in the dirt, making spirals in the grass, or just sitting still with the wind. The world didn't make much room for boys like Ben, especially not in Oak Ridge Estates, a gated community wrapped in fake smiles, fake concern, and Karen Whitmore, a bleach-blonde tyrant with a clipboard for a scepter and the HOA charter for her Bible. She didn't enforce rules, she weaponized them. Lawn too long? Violation. Chair on porch? Violation. Child playing too loudly? Immediate HOA citation. If evil ever wore heels and pearls, it lived in Unit 4A. The first time I saw her, she scowled at Ben for stepping 1 foot onto the community trail's grass edge. He wasn't even running, just walking and humming. She muttered, loud enough for me to hear, "These types don't belong in a civilized neighborhood." I locked eyes with her. She smiled, but not the kind you return. It was a warning. Everyone tiptoed around her. No one pushed back. I could already smell the fear, the quiet compliance, the rot beneath her manicured rules. She didn't know me yet, but soon, she'd wish she never did. Ben loved this park. It was one of the few places where his mind could wander free. No stairs, no judgment, just trees, wind, and soil to play in. He had his favorite spot, a shady patch under the old elm near the sandbox. That afternoon, he crouched down quietly, humming his soft melody, using a twig to draw swirling patterns in the dirt. I sat nearby, sipping coffee, scanning the horizon like instinct demanded. Watching, always watching. Then I saw her, Karen Whitmore, storming down the pathway in her blood-red blazer like she owned the planet. Clipboard clutched like a weapon, lips pursed into a razor-thin line of manufactured righteousness. She wasn't heading anywhere. She was hunting. And she had locked onto Ben. She stopped 2 feet from him. "Absolutely not!" she shrieked. "You cannot draw on HOA property. This is not a sandbox, it's a shared landscape." Ben didn't understand. He froze, wide-eyed, twig still in hand. He turned toward her slowly, confused. He didn't speak. He couldn't, not when frightened. Karen snatched the twig from his hand and snapped it in half. "Answer me!" she barked. "What's wrong with you? Are you deaf? Stupid? Or just another brat raised with no rules?" I stood up fast, spilling the coffee. My blood surged. But before I could reach her, she raised her hand and slapped Ben across the face. It was a wet, vicious crack, loud enough to silence the park. Ben fell backward, smacking into the grass. He curled into himself, rocking, breathing in short, rapid gasps. His fingers clawed at his ears as if the world was too loud, too sharp. Karen wasn't done. She towered over him and spat. "Maybe next time you'll learn to act like a human being." That's when the leash snapped inside me. I charged across the grass. She turned just in time to see me. Her smug expression faltered, just for a second. "You touch him again," I growled, closing the distance. "And I swear to God, you won't leave this park walking upright." She tried to scoff. "Oh, big man now, aren't you? You think I'm scared of a washed-up soldier? This kid, this thing, broke community rules. I was disciplining him." My fists clenched. "That wasn't discipline," I said, voice shaking with fury. "That was assault. That was a hate crime in broad daylight. And now, it's personal." I crouched beside Ben. His cheeks were red. His eyes didn't meet mine. I whispered, "I'm here. You're safe now. But inside me, there was no calm, only fire. Karen crossed a line no one crosses and walks away from. And starting now, I was going to burn her rulebook down, one bloody page at a time. The silence after the slap was deafening. No one moved. No one spoke. Even the wind seemed to hold its breath. Ben was still curled up beside me, trembling, hands pressed tight over his ears. My body shielded him, but my mind was a furnace. Every second I held back felt like swallowing fire. My heartbeat pounded like a war drum. Karen stepped back, brushing invisible dust from her sleeve like she'd just cleaned a mess. Her voice, sharp as glass, cut through the air. You people think your kids get a free pass just because they're broken? She scoffed, loud enough for the whole park to hear. This is a respectable neighborhood, not a damn therapy zoo. A mother near the swings gasped. A father stood from his bench but didn't speak. Cowards, all of them. Conditioned by Karen's fake authority, her paper-thin power, her constant threats of fines, violations, expulsion. But I wasn't like them. I wasn't from this world of manicured hedges and laminated rulebooks. I stood slowly, each movement deliberate, like loading a round into a chamber. My voice dropped into something calm, too calm. You just made the biggest mistake of your life. Karen smirked. Oh, please. What are you gonna do, soldier boy? Hit a woman? In public? With all these witnesses? I took a step toward her. You didn't think twice about hitting a child. You didn't think twice about humiliating him. So don't you dare play the victim now. She raised her chin, defiant. I am the president of this HOA. I can have you removed from this property. I will sue you into the dirt. I moved. Fast. The back of my left hand cut through the air like a whip, snapping across her face with a force that sent her spinning. She slammed into the metal HOA signpost, the one that read Community Expectations, Respect, Order, Peace. It rattled from the impact. Her clipboard dropped, her sunglasses cracked as they hit the sidewalk. She hit the ground hard, eyes wide, blood trickling from her nose and the corner of her lip. Gasps erupted around us. Someone dropped their phone. Someone else dropped their jaw. And I didn't flinch. Karen groaned, crawling halfway to her knees, cradling her jaw like it had betrayed her. You're dead, she hissed. I'll have you arrested. I'll call every lawyer in the county. I'll help you dial, I said coldly. But first, let's talk about the 3 kids you've hit before this. The listening devices you installed on public benches. The HOA funds you've redirected to your cousin's landscaping company. Should I keep going? She paled. You don't know who I am, she said, voice quivering. Oh, but I do, I said, crouching beside her. You're a bully in heels, a parasite dressed in polyester. And your little empire? It just cracked under your own weight. I stood and turned to the watching crowd. Anyone else got a problem with me defending a child from this tyrant? Speak now. Silence. And then, someone clapped. Just once. Then again. Then 2 more. Then the entire park applauded. Not loud, not wild, but enough. Enough to tell me Karen's reign was ending. She tried to scream something. Maybe a threat. Maybe a curse. But her words were lost under the growing sound of a community waking up. And I hadn't even begun. Karen didn't press charges that day. Not because she didn't want to, but because she couldn't walk straight. She limped off the sidewalk with her dignity shattered and her nose still leaking defiance. 2 officers showed up an hour later, probably summoned by one of her loyal minions, but I was ready. I had video footage. The camera from Mr. Dawson's porch across the street had captured everything. Karen screaming at Ben, slapping him, mocking his disability. It was clear, close, and time-stamped. The officers reviewed it, their jaws tightening. You did strike her, one of them said to me, voice cautious. I did, I replied. After she assaulted a minor with special needs. After she publicly degraded a child. And after she snapped this in half. I held up the broken twig Ben had dropped. Karen's souvenir of cruelty. The officer looked at his partner. She didn't mention any of that in her report. Of course she didn't, I snapped. Because people like her never expect the camera to be rolling. But now it is, and she's going to drown in her own lies. That night, I didn't sleep. I edited the footage, added captions, timestamps, and even slowed down the moment of the slap. I uploaded it to a private drive and sent it to 5 neighbors I knew had stories to tell. I also sent it to Karen's precious HOA board. Let them chew on it. The next morning, my inbox exploded. Mrs. Patel wrote first. Karen had once fined her for letting her autistic son play with chalk on the sidewalk. Mr. Ruiz said Karen threatened him with eviction for putting a small Mexican flag on his porch during Dia de los Muertos. 3 other parents mentioned sudden anonymous HOA complaints whenever their kids laughed too loudly near the fountain. It wasn't just abuse. It was a pattern. This wasn't about rules. This was about control. And Karen had weaponized the HOA into a personal kingdom of intimidation. I started collecting everything. Emails, fines, screenshots, audio clips. People sent voice messages Karen left at 2 a.m., threatening sanctions. A mom even recorded Karen inspecting her trash cans for unauthorized packaging. Disgusting. Predators operate in silence. They count on fear, on isolation, on no one watching. But I had eyes now. I had proof. And Karen's mask was slipping. I stared at the final video clip. Karen calling Ben a mistake of nature, as she slapped the twig from his hands. My jaw clenched. This ends now, I muttered aloud. I hit upload, and sent it all to the local police, the ADA advocacy group, and a civil rights lawyer. Let's see how Karen enjoys the spotlight, when it's finally honest. By sunrise, the storm had already begun. Karen didn't waste time playing defense. She went full offense. Classic narcissist maneuver. The second the video reached the neighborhood inboxes, she blasted out a community alert email riddled with slander. A violent, unstable outsider with a military background has endangered our children and attacked your HOA president without provocation. For your safety, avoid contact and report sightings to HOA security immediately. HOA security. What a joke. 2 underpaid rent-a-cops with walkie-talkies and flashlights. But fear was a powerful drug, and Karen knew exactly how to dose it. Within hours, I found a bright orange envelope taped to the front door. Violation notice. Threatening behavior. $750 fine. My sister nearly collapsed when she saw it. She's insane, she whispered. This is retaliation. I ripped the envelope in half and tossed it in the trash. This is war. Later that day, I noticed a county inspection notice nailed to the garage. Anonymous report of unsafe construction on the property. Complete lie. Then came the complaint about unregistered soil disturbance in the backyard, followed by a citation for visible military memorabilia in a window, which was apparently politically distressing. She was trying to drown me in paper cuts. But she made one mistake. She assumed I would fight her on her terms. I wouldn't. I fought smarter. That night, I sat down with a bottle of black coffee and began dissecting the HOA's financial records. Publicly accessible thanks to the bylaws she probably never thought anyone would actually read. And there it was. $1,400 in beautification grants, paid out to a landscaping company that didn't exist in any public registry. The address led to a P.O. box. The contractor listed shared a last name with Karen. You arrogant fool, I muttered. You left fingerprints on everything. I printed the statements, cross-referenced the checks, reached out to an old friend in municipal auditing. Within 48 hours, I had the framework of a fraud case. Clean, documented, undeniable. And yet, Karen kept pushing. On day 3, my sister found a plastic bag of shredded mail in our backyard. Inside were Ben's drawings, ripped into pieces, stomped, and stuffed with HOA flyers. That did it. I stared out the window, fists clenched, heart roaring. She went after my nephew again. I turned to my sister. Call everyone. The families she's bullied, the ones who stayed quiet. Tell them to meet me tomorrow night. No more waiting. We take this to court and burn her fake kingdom to the ground. Karen thought she was untouchable. But even tyrants fall, especially when their victims learn how to fight back. The courtroom smelled like dust, sweat, and fake politeness. Karen strutted in like she was walking a runway, not a legal hearing. Her nose had healed, her makeup was thick, and her ego thicker. She wore her signature crimson blazer, as if red could still scare people. It didn't. Not anymore. She was flanked by a greasy lawyer in a cheap suit, probably the only one she could afford now that half the HOA board had resigned under pressure. I stood up when she entered, not out of respect, but readiness. She locked eyes with me, lips curling. "You'll regret dragging me into this circus," she hissed. I smiled. "You're not in a circus, Karen. You're in court. But if you want a spotlight, I'll give you one." The judge called the session to order. Karen's attorney immediately launched into a ridiculous tirade, accusing me of violent vigilantism, militant intimidation, and disrupting community peace. I let him talk, let him rant, because he had no idea what was coming. When it was my turn, I stepped forward and opened the binder. "Your Honor," I said calmly, "this case isn't about neighborhood disputes. This is about corruption, cruelty, and the weaponization of power by a woman who believes a title makes her untouchable." I handed the judge a stack of documents, proof of the fake landscaping company, signed checks with Karen's signature, invoices for work never done, all funded by HOA dues. Then came the video. Karen slapping Ben, screaming at children, ripping chalk art off driveways, threatening to ruin a single mother's credit score over a misplaced trash bin. As the footage played, the courtroom transformed. Murmurs spread, eyes widened. Even the judge leaned forward, jaw clenched. Karen fidgeted, her posture sinking by the minute. Her lawyer tried to object, but the judge waved him off. "You're watching it with your own eyes," I said. "There's nothing left to dispute." Then, witnesses took the stand, neighbors once too afraid to speak. One by one, they told their stories. Fines for minor decorations, threats over children's behavior. HOA board members coerced into silence. Karen's composure began to crack. She whispered to her lawyer. Her face paled. Her fingers trembled. The judge finally spoke. "Ms. Whitmore, given the volume and clarity of this evidence, I am ordering a full investigation into your financial management of the HOA and your conduct as an official." Karen shot to her feet. "This is harassment. They're all lying. This is a vendetta." I stepped closer. "No, Karen. This is justice, and it's just getting started." She stared at me, face twisted with hate. But beneath the rage, there was something else now. Fear. Real, unmistakable fear. The kind that comes when a tyrant realizes her throne is made of paper. And it's already on fire. Karen always believed her title was a shield, president of the HOA, queen of citations, mistress of manufactured authority. But what she forgot, what they always forget, is that titles mean nothing when the people stop believing in them. 3 days after the hearing, the HOA board met behind closed doors. Half of them had already resigned. The rest, pressured by residents, media inquiries, and the looming audit, voted unanimously. Karen Whitmore was removed from office. I got the news in a simple email. No grand announcement, just one line. Effective immediately, Karen Whitmore has been stripped of her role and privileges. But the real blow came when the local newspaper published the headline the next morning. HOA tyrant ousted amid allegations of fraud, abuse, and discrimination. Her picture was right there, mid-scream, mid-meltdown, blood-red blazer and all. Not flattering, not forgiving. The comments section exploded. Residents she'd silenced for years suddenly found their voices. They told their stories, shared their finds, exposed her tactics. The HOA Facebook group turned into a courtroom, and Karen had no defense. That afternoon, I stood outside her house, not in anger, but as a witness. A county vehicle rolled up. A uniformed officer handed her a court summons. Another served a search warrant for HOA financial records. Karen stood in her doorway, robe clutched tight, makeup streaked. Her voice cracked as she barked, "This is harassment. I built this neighborhood. You'll all regret this. I stepped forward. You didn't build anything, Karen. You just sat on a throne made of fear, and now it's collapsing, with you under it. She stared at me like she still couldn't believe the walls were real. Like this was all some dream she'd soon wake up from. But there were no more excuses. No more citations to hide behind. Just cold law and hot truth, closing in like jaws. Later that night, the new interim board issued a formal apology to the community. They reinstated family events, removed Karen's absurd noise ordinances, and created a new rule. No board member may act unilaterally in disciplinary matters. All actions must be recorded, transparent, and reviewed by a panel. I stared at that rule and exhaled. Ben came up beside me. He didn't say much. He rarely did. But he handed me a drawing. A house. A park. People smiling. And in the corner, a broken red crown, lying in the grass. I looked down at him. That yours? He nodded. Looks better without her, I said. He smiled. Courtroom B was packed. Not just with lawyers and reporters, but with faces I'd seen for months. Parents Karen had fined. Kids she'd scolded. Veterans she'd disrespected. Even the janitor from the community center showed up. Everyone who'd been silenced now came to witness her fall. Karen sat at the defendant's table, stiff and cold. No more blazer. No clipboard. Just a navy suit too big for her ego, and a legal team that looked more like damage control than defense. She avoided my eyes, but I didn't look away. She's not afraid of the law, I whispered to my attorney. She's afraid of exposure. The judge entered. The charges were read. Assault of a minor discrimination against persons with disabilities, fraudulent misuse of HOA funds, illegal surveillance on public property, harassment and intimidation of residents. Each word fell like a hammer. Karen flinched at the phrase, intent to financially exploit. Her lawyer stood and tried to spin the usual excuses. My client was under extreme stress. She acted out of concern for neighborhood standards. There was no malicious intent. I stood. No malicious intent? I snapped. She slapped a 9-year-old across the face. She fined a woman for hosting a birthday party. She tore down a child's drawing and called it vandalism. The judge gestured for silence, but he didn't stop me. Karen didn't protect this neighborhood. She fed off it. She built a throne out of shame, out of silence, and she ruled with fear because she thought no one would ever push back. Karen's voice cracked for the first time. This is all a witch hunt. The judge slammed his gavel. Enough! A beat of silence. Then the verdict. Karen Whitmore, you are found liable for civil misconduct, assault, and financial fraud under HOA jurisdiction and state civil code. The court orders the following: a $1.2 million restitution to affected residents, a lifetime ban from holding office in any housing association, and 600 hours of mandatory community labor. Your actions were not only unethical, but cruel, targeted, and deliberate. Gasps, relief, vindication. Karen sank into her chair, stunned. Her fingers clutched the table like it was the last stable thing in her life, but it couldn't save her now. The judge looked toward me. To those who stood up, this court thanks you. Justice requires courage. You brought it. I nodded, jaw tight. Not in celebration, in closure. Outside the courthouse, reporters swarmed. I didn't speak to them. I just walked with Ben, holding his hand. He looked up at me. Is she gone? I looked back at the building where her empire had finally crumbled. Yeah, I said. She's gone. And this time, she's not coming back. It was a different kind of morning. No HOA patrols, no clipboards clicking down the sidewalk, no scowling eyes watching from behind tinted windows. Just sunlight pouring through the trees and the sound of children, laughing without fear. I stood at the edge of the park, where it had all begun. The place where Ben had been struck. The place where I had struck back. Now, there was a new sign where the old HOA plaque used to hang. No rules, no threats, just 3 simple words. Kindness is power. Ben ran ahead of me, his feet kicking up leaves as he spun in the grass. carefree. He reached the sandbox, knelt down, and began drawing with a twig, just like before. But this time, no one stopped him. No one dared. I turned as a van pulled up beside the sidewalk. County Community Service Division. Karen stepped out, dressed in a neon orange vest, holding a trash picker, a chain of volunteers behind her. Her hair was tied back. Her pride was gone. She didn't look at me as she approached the trash bins. She tried to turn her back, but I didn't let her. "Funny," I said. "You tried to control this place, now you clean it." She didn't respond. Just bent over and grabbed a wrapper, the gritted shame on her face more satisfying than any slap. A few parents nearby clapped, quietly, but with meaning. A girl blew bubbles past her, and one popped right on Karen's face. She flinched. Ben stood up from the dirt and held out his drawing. A house, a sun, a park. No broken crowns this time. Just a heart drawn in the corner. "Is that us?" I asked. He nodded. "It's home now." And it was. Not because the grass grew greener, not because the rules changed, but because we took it back. Karen tried to build a kingdom of fear. We tore it down, with truth, fists, and fire. Now, all that remained of her rule was the sound of a broom dragging behind her, and the echo of a free child's laughter. Justice isn't always delivered in courtrooms. Sometimes it's delivered on the grass where a child was struck. Sometimes it begins with a single slap and ends with the system collapsing. What happened to Karen wasn't just the downfall of one cruel woman. It was a reminder. Tyranny doesn't always come wearing uniforms or crowns. Sometimes it hides behind clipboards, HOA titles, and fake smiles. It silences with fines. It controls with fear. And it thrives when good people look away. But not this time. This time, a child's silence became a spark. This time, a community stood up. And this time, fear met its match. Not in more fear, but in truth, backed by action. If there's one thing I hope you take away from this story, it's this. Protect the ones who can't protect themselves. Speak when others go quiet. And never let cruelty wear the mask of authority without consequences. It doesn't matter if you're a veteran, a mother, a neighbor, or just someone watching from the shadows. You have more power than you think. Because when you fight not with hate, but with courage, clarity, and conviction, you don't just win the battle. You rewrite the rules. Karen lost her power. But more importantly, we reclaimed ours. Now I want to hear from you. Have you ever witnessed someone abuse power like Karen did? What would you have done if you saw her hit that child? What does kindness is power mean to you? Drop your thoughts in the comments. I read every one. Let's make this more than a story. Let's make it a conversation. If this story moved you, hit that like button. It tells the algorithm this story matters. Subscribe for more real justice, raw truth, and redemption arcs that prove the human spirit never backs down. And don't forget to turn on notifications, so you never miss what they try to silence. Because in this community, we don't just survive HOA tyrants, we end them. Thanks for watching. And remember, the loudest power is the one that stands up in silence and acts.